Hello and welcome to another small game Let's Play. This time we'll be playing a Twine game called Neotrogla, though I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And let's dive right in and see where it goes. I don't recognize the girl staring back at me. Don't get me wrong, piece by piece this image tracks, but the girl looking back is wholly unknown. The eternally tired eyes are deeply familiar, but the inky veins down the side of my neck are new to say the least. In those same eyes, a black glint shines too brightly for my comfort, buried deep under the pearl ocean that is the sclera. Each discovery is a creeping dread, a shiver up a spine under unholy tension. I can't help but wince with every new worry. At 24 years of age, the woman in the mirror is a warped caricature of my preteen desires, fueled not by lust or desire, but by a gnawing need to simply be. I cannot help but apply laser sight to ever-perceived imperfection, straight hips and flat chest, this parodic statue of medically induced girldom, enough to satisfy some metric of passable femininity, but sorely lacking the nuance of idealized form. In attempting to chase a dream reality, I found myself caught in a tangled web of disillusionment, malaise, dysphoria, and weariness. Even now, friends and family can only see me in a tinted lens, the girl who wasn't. And as each passing day ticks by, shredding seconds into mournful demise, I can't help but wonder if this drive to hit peak womanhood hit a greater wish, a fuller desire to not just be, but be more, be better, be different. Instead, I just stare blankly, a tight sweatshirt and tighter leggings providing a blackout silhouette, neon pink buds boring into my ears, hood blocking out all. A loose satchel hangs over my shoulder, just in case. If the mounting depression was the worst of my issues, I could struggle in safety. But something is wrong with me, something I don't understand. Beneath this pale flesh, I can feel the churning and crawling of something. Putting a finger on it seems impossible, but the small things pile up immeasurably. The feelings of soft steps running up my spine, the senseless clawing of pincers against bruised veins, internal consumption devouring ill flesh. Everything hurts. Beyond the physical, the emotional, I can feel it killing my soul. The person looking back in the mirror isn't some girl. No, she's a husk. The train pulls into the station, slowly rolling into position. The intercom delivers its automated call, a send-off to parts unwanted. I can't help but sigh under my breath, from one barren wasteland to another. My gaze tracks my footsteps up welded stairs, climbing up to the railway, with a style yelping a shaking plea to please don't fuck with me. I hope my off-putting aesthetics can deter even the slightest perturbance. I scratch at my wrists, feeling the twinge flowing through my veins, begging to be ripped free, mangled beyond belief. Under the surface, my eyes bulge with a growing pressure, writhing closer to rupture. Twin-tone bells signal my ride, a stainless steel getaway train. Boarding, it's hard to gather my thoughts beyond the subdermal itch. Too many nights have been spent in these same seats. The worn divots in the fabric tell a story of midnight debauchery, charred into history like a burnt-in shadow. Sun-bleached advertisements bathed in flickering white light tell the long tale of terminal capitalism, legal indeterminism, and soul-rending corpo-essentialism. unrelatable urban despair painted with the brush of toxic positivity, poisoned to the very core. Regardless of what's going on inside me, nothing will be as sickening as this city. Exits and entrances draw shut. 500 tons of cold metal lurch, dragging a dozen souls across decade-old rails. Look away. Blank blank. You'll be home soon. I wonder if that's the name of the narrator. Stations fade into stations, flickering lights illuminating the dried blood and fresh vomit every step of the way. The usual suspects pile on: drunken students, workers on the graveyard shift, and those with nowhere else to go. This late, the unspoken rule is to keep your head down, and like hell, I'm going to let someone make an example of me this late in the night. As far as I'm concerned, the only passengers tonight are the roaches and I. Rumbling over the tracks, riders come and go with each stop. Millender, Renaissance, Michigan Avenue, around the bend to Grand Circus Park. The elevated train loops eternally on a one-way circuit. 13 stops, 2.9 miles, a 14-minute road trip. A waste, but an essential waste, if I don't want to catch a knife to the ribs or worse. Staring at the carpeted flooring, peeling at the edges, my sight darts left and right, catching offhand glimpses of minuscule life. Shouting and leaping upward draws my attention to the other side of the car. On and off clamor is nothing new, and the cause always remains the same. An inch-long exoskeleton, copper running like quicksilver, charges full lean down the train car over steel-toed boots and canvas prints black as lead. Hello again, Blato Dia. Voicing that welcome would have fallen on deaf ears. Everything comes to a swift end with a trio of full-force stomps, 2 warning shots, and a killing blow. The cockroach crunches against the carpeting, a sickly paste loosely sticking to rubber treads. Disgust pours through the cabin, strangers united in a mutual loathing for the mutilated form. I keep to my corner as the rabble spills out, eyeing the deceased. Crushed specimens are suitable for very little, but cockroaches are extreme scavengers. To a starving bug, a body is a cornucopia, an excuse to devour, consume, feast. With bated breath, I keep steady watch on the corpse. As the car draws quiet and the hours drag on, my eyelids droop, heavy with exhaustion. They meander over to their dead counterpart. The pair, lively representatives for the species, eat away. From my bag, a simple jar will suffice for the short trip home. One runs off, free to rot with the refuse. Its twin, trapped in glass confines, will never know freedom again. What a shame, what a blessing. I clasp the skittering insect to my chest, heart aflutter, and smile glowing. Up the cracked concrete stairwell of my apartment, the routine destitution feels quaint, almost welcoming. Each broken home does little to keep out the elements. Summer brings blistering heat, and winters bring numbing chill. And that's before you get into the infestation situation, a regular pest palace. The complex refuses to attract any but the most desperate. My eyes track the nameplates. A. Johnson, G. Samsa, A. Delambre, until familiar blank blank comes into view. Jiggling the door open, I wince as a rat runs over my boot into the empty hallway. Who am I to complain? The conditions could be better, of course, but the surrounding filth has sent rent plummeting, and I never was one for mingling with neighbors. Solitude suits me plenty. As far as the pest problem is concerned, out of my bag the mason jar is buzzing, the creature inside sending anxious palpitations through the glass. Collections require subjects. And this, plump, powerful and full of life, is the perfect candidate. Transferring the bug to the killing jar, an affixed hermetic prison of ether, paper and plaster, used to be an anxious affair, but the years have made this second nature. Still, no amount of time makes the process any cleaner. The hours will pass as the insect suffocates on the chemical concoction. Pulling a string overhead, the room floods with warm light. They're all so beautiful, pinned to their displays. Wings outstretched, legs tucked away, a spike stabbed into the thorax, keeping each and every subject secure. Insects line the wall, secured in wooden frames, behind glass panes. Beyond a collection, the gallery is my obsession, tucked away from prying eyes. 1,000 dead, marked by their genus and species, were all the companionship I needed. I beam, rapidly turning from Spiralosaurus sylvestri and Hemilophasma montaguense to Extotosoma tiaratum and Eurolean nostras, stopping only as I felt flush red return to my cheeks. Embarrassed, I turned to hide my unbecoming affection for the beasts. Averting my eyes did nothing to halt my adoration. The killing jar would take time to snuff out the cockroach's remaining breath. There'd be plenty of time to waste, and so much to prepare in the meantime. Calming myself, I pull away, placing my bag by the door, tearing the sweatshirt off and flinging it to the wall. Processing the specimen is a delicate process. I step into the bathroom to freshen up. Inside, a cracked mirror welcomes me, damaged visage matching my own. Dirty tiles cover the floor, pockmarked and chipped. A sink with dried bloodstains, squalor befitting a home of lost hopes and last chances. Now bare-chested, the reflection has nowhere to hide. Cracked skin stretches taut over muscle, adorned with undulating welts and lesions. Closer inspection reveals the subtleties of movement pushing under the skin, now obvious without the heavy cover of the hoodie. Already deeply concerned, I'm now drawn to the black masses punching holes in my stomach, malignant bodies twitching with unpredictable discomfort. I preemptively hiss through my teeth as I prod at the tumors, but surprisingly, my touch brings no pain. I'm stuck. Without money nor insurance, no doctor will treat me, and the simple home remedies, alcohol as antiseptic and analgesic, refuse to make a dent in my worsening ways. Even if I met one, what would I say? What could explain this pain, this tightness of the body, the chittering beneath the surface, the intermittent twitching? It defies explanation. What else can I do but wash up and return to the only thing that brings solace? Reaching to the door, I notice peculiarities on my arm, stretch marks on the joints awash with micro cuts. I don't know what to make of it. I need to go. A cheap white tee is pulled over my head, the bare minimum to cover myself as I step back to my study. The reek of alcohol wafts through the room, less the kind for consumption, more the isopropyl variety. Not to say I haven't attempted to mix passion and pleasure before, but in this instance, the stench is of death. Uncapped solution left out in the open, rookie mistakes. Cursing myself and sealing the compound off, I collapse onto the seat by my workstation, slightly lightheaded. Nothing I can't shake off. Unsealing the killing jar unleashes a puff of pungent stench. A light prod confirms what anyone could have guessed. Platodia was dead. It's time to work. Beautiful. Every detail. The jagged legs, the vestigial wings, the delicate antennae paint a picture of darling insecta. Perhaps not as innovative as industrious Formicidae, nor as beautiful, nor as beloved as charming Coccinellidae. I'm doing my best with pronouncing these, but beautiful nonetheless. In all my years crawling this world, there's nothing more fulfilling, more welcoming, than being here with my true love. Here at my desk, nothing matters but being among them, my works of art, my angels, the closest thing I have to a family. I thought becoming some form of natural, leaning into the preconceived notions of woman, girl, or some type of feminine thing would be enough to earn acceptance. But time and time again, I've been proven wrong. Immortalized in induced stoicism, a solid decade has given me the insight to know that insects, chitinous, colonizing, and all-consuming are the closest thing to safety I will have. Even self-evangelizing about them sends me into a fervor, shaking in their elegance, breath heavy at their anatomical perfection. Feelings as carnal as lust are gone in the sight of such magnificence. Replacing them is a deep admiration, a prayer to the altar of bug. The work is slow, tedious, and painstaking. Every micro movement is the chance of complete disfigurement for the subject. Repetitiously, pins pierce the thorax through a series of staging cards before the specimen can be presented in any meaningful way. In cases of orthopteroids, the left wing is spread wide. My collection's non-scientific focus allows such decadence. When all is said and done, I personally frame the creature based on a variety of factors, up to and including a degree of favoritism. Platodia will be respected, if not honored, near the back of the study. Were this an academic institution, even a creature as lowly as it would be given ample love. Unfortunately for it, this is no such institution. My destitution is its downfall. C'est la vie. Fluorescent bulbs overhead drown out the ambient noise of the room, creating a layer of intangible fuzz. It's essential for my work. Otherwise, the slightest sound of the city, of shouting men and screeching tires would leave my nerves frayed and my patience frazzled. Still, it means I miss the spectacle of a gnat buzzing around the room, or a bumblebee hovering through the window. Such miracles are wonderful, but the work comes before petty fascinations. I stare at humble Platodia, my hands shaking ever so slightly at his magnificent visage. I still haven't fully caught myself, a light blush sinking in. My professors would have been ashamed of such a carnal display, but I'm not about to let ghosts get in the way of love. The needle draws closer to the insect, both handled deftly between a set of pliers, inching nearer, moving to impale. Stabbing pain courses through the back of my hand, a panicked SWAT slaughtering the culprit. Gathering the crushed remains of the insect, I'm awash with a paralyzing remorse. On inspection, the insect is hard to place. A wasp? Perhaps some sort of bee? I inspect the sting. While its death is tragic, a medical emergency seems like an even worse outcome. But as I clean the site, I'm perturbed. A single dot runs up the inside of my arm, a noticeable bump trailing up to my chest. Leaking from the piercing, discharge dark as night ushers forth. With my breath held, each second is an eternity as I wait for some sort of complication. Blood clot, paralysis, stroke, heart attack. I count 1, 2, 3 minutes passing without incident. But the tension mounts, stacking steadily. Eventually, the anxiety subsides, but questions remain. It perplexes me. Gazing at the dear departed fills my mind with startling curiosity. Hallway after hallway wind together, an eternal labyrinth of drop boxes and boarded entries. There's no way I look anything less than intimidating, with the obvious bags under my eyes and greasy hair, shaking every door that isn't barred off. Deep down, it's hard to think of this excursion as anything more than hopeless, a half-baked desire to find some hidey hole this deceased wasp called home. But I'd be kicking myself if I didn't give it an honest shot. How could I call these bugs family if I couldn't do the bare minimum for them? So door by door, I wiggle knobs, shake them against their frame, even giving some clearly abandoned rooms a solid kick. But as expected, not a single one budges. Up the stairs I run, my purported nuisance raising the ire of the few neighbors I have. But I won't quit until I find this nest. Wherever one lies, more must follow. I keep up the search. I've practically given up hope by the time I've gotten to the 6th floor, but the swarming around room 606 paints a picture of infestation. Even a half-hearted leer gives away a colony of insects crawling around the frame, squeezing between it and the entryway. The handle gives with little force, wide open and unchecked. Shadows pour out of the room, completely blanketed in the void. I wrestle into my pockets, pulling out my phone. With a click-flick-tap combo, a beam of light emanates from my budget device. Before anything else, I see the cause of the filth in the room. Its prior inhabitant slumped in the corner and half decomposed. My guts spill to the floor. Not like it'll be worse than the mold and trash covering every surface. Recoiling and wiping the vomit from the corner of my mouth, I peek outside, trying to get a read on the poor sap's name. No dice. Already I'd done more to wreck a potential crime scene than I'd hoped to, but I can't say this is the worst I've done for these little guys. Pounding from the fumes, my head feels like 1 billion eggs are hatching in my sinuses. Bumping the exit open a crack eases the problem, at least. On first impressions, flashing my cheap light around reveals little but the stiff, but the insects around the frame wouldn't lie to me, even if nature allowed them to. Morbid curiosity gets the better of me. I walk up to the cadaver and give him a nudge. Big mistake. Shaken away by my provocation, the carcass collapses in on itself, head tearing from the shoulders and disintegrating against the floor in a blackened smudge. From their throat, an agitated whirlwind of wings and legs go on the offensive. In my shock, I had backed into my only exit, sealing it off. I was trapped. Any efforts to open it, kick the lock, break it down, only served to drive the horde mad. Flinching away from the door sends the bugs into a frenzy, attacking in droves. Millions of microscopic syringes dig in, injecting necrotic agony. Too dumbstruck to utter a sound, I can only lug myself away as the mob grows, drilling out of corpses' rotting limbs to defend their morbid homes. With each puncture, I can feel some sort of mass flow into me. Following the beads of infection, the injections are inconsistent, running every which way, down to my thighs, up to my neck, wherever a deficit of pain exists. Everything below my neck is white hot pain, and despite my best efforts, I have no hope of scrambling off the floor. I'm dead if I don't make a move, but my legs feel melted below the knee, my arms infinitely heavy. Playing the odds, I fling my phone across the room, hoping the excess light draws the butchers in. Instead, I can only hang my mouth open as the real lair is illuminated. A nest of wood fiber, not too different from a paper wasp, wraps the walls, warping the foundation of the room. Slithering in mass, a smorgasbord of creepy crawlies, beetles, cockroaches, wasps, crickets, and ants march in and out of hexagonal grids. Endless in number, they shrink away at the spotlight. If awakening the swarm was a mistake, leaving my mouth open was even more so. In the seconds my jaw hung agape, roaches rammed their way to the back of my throat, coating my tongue in a mix of bodily fluid and acid. I couldn't do anything to save it. They've muted me as quickly as they've struck me down. I clamped my mouth shut, crushing some of the intruders, and fiercely shook off the excess. They rushed the beam of light. No matter how much I try, I can't piece together what they are. Like an amalgam of a million disparate beasts, they represent every aspect of the class that I adore. It's a bittersweet appreciation, but I still can't keep myself from getting worked up at the prospect of discovering new life. Slowly, I rise to my feet. I give the door a heavy boot, launching it open. Reaching back to close it behind me, I feel a dreadful crunch onto my wrist. A single bite had torn the meat from my wrist, exposing ivory bone. Thousands of them flew through the cracks, not letting a man-made entrance steal a meal from them. My options are limited, compromised. I have no recourse but to run as far as my numb legs can carry me, tumbling down the stairs again and again, nearly breaking my neck on the dismount. I take to the streets, a full sprint keeping me from the precipice of fate. Everything else, man, machine, fades into homogeny. I make slight detours, a loose roll of duct tape acting as a gauze, but eventually my legs give up on the final step of the stairs of the train station. My head bounces off the concrete, but at this moment I can't even begin to care about the repercussions of that blunder. I turn to see my assailant, only to see them disappear. I finally feel like I can breathe. I can feel everyone gawking at me as I drag my broken form to a concrete pillar. Shaking, I blink again and again until I hold a blink for a little too long. When I came to, it must have been a little over 6 hours. The clocks around Bricktown Station have always been inconsistent at the best of times, and dropping my phone back in the apartment rendered me with a warped flow of time. My eyes flutter open, slipping in and out of consciousness. Morning sun sets the station alight through its glass walls. From the second I gain clarity, I'm blinded. I look at my hand. Tiny whimpers escape my lips as I tear at the duct tape holding the limb together. A clearly foregone conclusion. With the final strip peeled away, my hand nearly comes off, tender meat barely hanging on to the bone. Pure shock rings through my body like a funeral toll, undercut only by the searing agony running up my veins. I let all the tension in my jaw crush in on itself, refusing to let out even a gasp in pain, destroying cavity-rich teeth clearly left to rot. Rebinding the wound won't save it, but the dim hope of retaining whatever remains pushes me to reapply the makeshift bandaging. As I finish the application, I stare at the torn end of my forearm. While the wrist itself has been reduced to ragged flesh and exposed bone, the frayed forearm boils, black bubbles rippling on the surface. Ooze seeps from the gash, a tar-like substance slopping to the station floor. Like blood and oil swirling, the cut flows fluid freely. It burns. As I watch, fused flecks of flesh fall off in clumps, splattering the grey concrete in an unholy, sanguine, melancholy paint job. Everything gets blurry as I stumble to my feet, limping home and leaving a visceral trail. I falter and misstep. Collapsing over and over, I shamble toward the abandoned apartment. In my misery, the distance closes miraculously as I slam my weight against the heavy front door. Dragging my body up the winding stairs as if spiraling to heaven, my home draws closer and closer. Unknown blank blank blurs into view as I tackle the entrance, busting the lock and splitting the entrance open. Crashing to the floor, I can barely rise as I creep to my work desk. A fumbling hand pulls at the desk, upending it and sending insects and tools to the floor, broken and scattered. Faint and quaking, I grab the isopropyl, still half full, as I falter towards the kitchen. There, grasping a butcher's knife, I set what remained of my hand on the cutting board, removing the wound dressing one last time. Twisting the cap off the alcohol, I bite into a rag as I pour its contents on the severance. A final attempt to disinfect, before I take matters into my own hands. As if resisting on its own, my arm twitches uncontrollably. Only then, seconds before bringing the blade down, do I spot the copper entangling the bone, jutting out awkwardly from the split. Quivering in sensory overload, the metallic brown material lightly cracks under the undue pressure, pulsating in solitary panic. Wide-eyed, I let out a scream, letting bloodlust wash over me as I hack away at the hand. Chop after chop, cleave after crack, the dull knife makes slow work of its mutilation. An eternity later, the hand comes free. With nerves dying and tendons losing tension, the digits twitch, a dying spider. Somehow, the scarring injury is the least of my concerns. Now that the useless appendage is dispatched, the sickly copper feels no remorse in protruding out, unrestrained from the mangled sinew and skin. Coated in inky bile, the substance peeks through the amputation, revealing its true nature. A chitinous exoskeleton has formed beneath the skin. I feel the membrane at my seams stretching, tearing asunder at the wrist, the elbow, the shoulder. It's not even a feeling of torture anymore. With all of my nerves and synapses flaring in a "God help me" plea, everything becomes enveloped in a sea of suffering. The next to go is the maimed forearm, splitting at the end like a blossoming flower. With the excess ripped apart, the bronze growth folds out, an arthropod's leg lined in elongated spines. Pricking through my opposite arm, the spines sting like knife-point nettles, currents of sickness dripping off the limb, a rising build-up behind my eyes, a cluster headache from hell blinds me. My bones realize their pointlessness at this point, splintering as the exoskeleton takes shape, reinforcing the outer shell. My body convulses in pain-induced hysteria, kicking in defiance. For every rejection of the old form, a new abnormality sends spikes of agony through my core. I can hardly breathe. Each wheeze sharp, cut short. The strain behind my eyes hits its peak, pushing the eyeball against the bony orbit. My optic nerve has already been melted away, first in a loss of color and focus until half my vision is thrust into darkness. As something pushes harder and harder against the eye, desperate to escape, I impotently cup the socket. With a final shove, the ball detonates in a shower of vitreous, a wash of humors, rendering the eyeball completely vestigial, the optic nerve giving way as the ruptured organ plops weakly against the tile. From the orifice, a single towering antenna swells, unspooling and free. Each hair on the tendril flicks blood on the walls, a ruby paintbrush marking unstained canvas. Undergoing the torment breaks me. My guts spill out on the fractured tile as I lose consciousness, letting the corruption eat away at a free host. No one saw the girl again after that. Months pass. Every couple of weeks, the city sends someone to check on the apartment. First, police officers, investigating the screaming girl thing with a dead hand. Remains were found, annihilated and unrecognizable. Nothing that could trace her now. Then, appraisers, landlords, and miscellaneous debris arrive on the site, aiming to profit from death. As one spills in after another, 1,000,000 hungry mouths feed. Passerbys make claims of insect infestations, massive hordes of unrelated species rotting a single building inside out. Wiser observers stay away, letting the inhabitants eat the high-rise. The foolhardy and foolish stumble in, either through ignorance or arrogance. Rumors spread of a massive thing living within, nesting within the walls. Some even say it ate the girl whole before turning on the entire complex. No one can prove it, one way or another. All anyone can agree on is that if you go in, you don't come out. And what matters is that when you enter, we rejoice. The door swings open. A man looking to profit on ghost stories. My family will eat well tonight. That was Neotrogla, a Twine story written by Roxy S., who is Squiggledot on itch.io. Music composed and written by, I assume that's read as Cone Cultist, but spelled with a V, which is also their Bandcamp username. And then there are sound effects and image credits, which I suspect will take me off to the browser, so I won't click that for the video. That was so good. I didn't want to interrupt in the middle, but I definitely enjoyed the Gregor Samsa shout-out reference to Metamorphosis as apparently one of the neighbors from this building. Maybe all of this started with him, and this is just how it's been progressing since then. Really fun body horror stuff, intense writing, and really went really well with the music and stuff too. So that was really good. Please visit this person's game page, rate it, write a comment if you enjoyed it. There is always going to be a link in the videos to the game I have just played, and you can check out other stuff they've made. I don't know for sure if they've done other things, but give them a follow and keep an eye out. But for now, that is all. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.